a good asset manager understands the number. A great asset manager understands what's behind the number.
All right, welcome to Inside Hotel Asset Management. This is a Future of Hospitality podcast. So in this series, we are exploring the world of hotel asset management through real case studies, and they're being brought by you by industry leaders. So hotel asset management is all about value. And value creation. So today we're going to talk about the Grand Hotel Central Barcelona in Spain. So we are going to hear from the Schroders Capitals team. So they have implemented a very smart repositioning strategy. And by doing that, they not only set up the hotel for long-term growth, but they also prepared it for the exit or for the sale. So maybe a quick reminder for everyone. So in a hotel, you would usually see three entities. So the owner, who will have like an asset manager, someone who manages the investment, the operator, and the brand. Some of these entities can be, one and the same company. We'll talk about that later as well. So my name is Luc Boschmans. I work for Reposition Global based in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. And today we will be hearing from Emmanuel Dissay and Dario Filippone from Schroders. Gentlemen, please introduce yourselves. Emmanuel, would you like to start?
Head of Asset Management for Schroders Hotels. I look after a portfolio of 45 hotels in 9 different countries worth 3.6 billion euro.
Fantastic. So, Dario, please.
Yeah. My name is Dario Filippone. I'm one of the asset managers of Schroders Capital. I'm in charge of 6 assets located between Poland and Spain. So yes, I travel a lot, and I work with Emmanuel now for quite a long time, and we are involved in this specific asset of the Grand Hotel Central in Barcelona.
Great. So maybe a question for Emmanuel. So Emmanuel, how did you become involved in hotel asset management? How did that happen?
Honestly, nobody starts a career saying, I want to be a hotel asset manager. Correct. And I think my path was really accidental. I started in operations as an analyst at the Intercontinental in Berlin in the early 90s. Then I moved into finance as an accountant at the time Churchill Intercontinental in London. Now it's a Hyatt. And that combination, operations on one side and financial discipline on the other, became really the foundation of my career. From there, I moved into my first proper asset management role with IHG in the UK. And then I worked for owners of Hilton hotels. And step by step, I really learned the tricks of understanding both how a hotel works on the operation side and what are the key objectives of owners and what do you do to value and to maximize the value of a portfolio. So I suppose I'm the living proof that there isn't one single path into asset management. You can come from operations, finance, development, revenue management. What matters is learning to connect the hotel's operations reality with the owner's financial objectives.
Okay. Thank you, Emmanuel. What about you, Dario?
Well, similar to Emmanuel, it really happens by chance. Actually, after some initial operational experience, I moved into strategic consultancy, and at that time actually was post the great financial crisis of 2008, and I was in Africa, and I was consulting for owners around the continent for establishing new hotels, and some asset management assignment started to come, because clearly the owners needed to reshuffle or reformulate their strategy after that crisis and implement it. And well, this is how it started. I had the chance to asset manage initially an asset in the Mauritius, and then another one in Cape Town, and then little by little I grew, in that sense, and then I was called by Schroders, um, and I started doing it with Emmanuel.
Great, thank you. So I was really fascinated, to read about what you guys did at the Grand Hotel Central in Barcelona. So I would like to hear more about it. So Emmanuel, would you like to, explain us a little bit what you guys have done there, why you've done that, and then we can go into a little bit more detail with Dario.
Sure. I'll give a quick introduction, and then Dario, who has been looking after these assets since 2021, is the specialist of this hotel. Basically, we're talking about the Grand Hotel Central in Barcelona. It's a 146 bedroom hotel located in the Gothic district of Barcelona. It's a beautiful building. It has 3 food and beverage outlets, and we acquired it at the end of 2021. We spent a bit more than 8 million euro to fully refurbish it, reposition it. We went from a classic hotel management contract to direct operations, and Dario will tell you much more about that. And we basically grew the RGI from 64 in 2022 to 108 in 2026.
Wow.
This is such a successful story that we are already selling the hotel at the moment, because the first chapter of the story has been successfully written.
Great, and maybe just for if we have listeners who don't know that much about hotel asset management, so RGI is the revenue generation index. That's what we use to compare rooms revenues amongst other hotels, right? To see whether we're doing well. So this is a clear example that there has been quite a big success. Dario, would you like to give a bit more details about the plan?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, this hotel, it's really a great story in the sense that when we first looked at it, this hotel was kind of positioned in the entry level of the 5-star, maybe higher 4-star, if you can put it this way, upper scale. And what was kind of surprising for us was the fact that although it is in the very city center of Barcelona, it seemed to be more focused on business rather than leisure, with these rooms that had big desks. The colors were kind of stark and darks. And when we looked at it, we saw a hotel that could have much potential to actually increase the share of the leisure clientele, which is the one that it allows you to increase also the ADR and the performance of the hotel. And then when we passed through the acquisition period that has been very quick because of the transaction dynamic. We got into the real life of this hotel, and we had some initial issue because we had to rethink a little bit at the business plan, because some of the market conditions were changed. The owners were probably asking higher value at that time, and we have been very quick at reshaping the business plan and redefine the scope of work for this hotel. So very interesting. We changed the scope of work, and after a few years, it was definitely the good decision to take. We have redecorated the rooms, changed completely the F&B offer. One restaurant is completely redone and new. We have soft touched some of the common area, and we have repositioned the hotel from a marketing standpoint towards a more lifestyle, joyful type of hotel, again to cater for this leisure clientele.
Okay. Yeah, interesting, fascinating. I mean, it's kind of amazing that you would find a hotel like this, which in a city with so many tourist attractions and such a great business mix with a lot of leisure travelers, and finding such a centrally located hotel, but actually equipped for business travelers. That's
Yeah. It was surprising to us. Actually, the biggest surprise, I think, it was the first time that I entered to the hotel, and I see that it was much more beautiful in real life than in the pictures. Like sometimes you always see these hotels try to oversell or overpromise through the web, and in this case, for us, was kind of the opposite. They say, no, no, but this hotel is so beautiful. It's so great. So we need to give justice, to this beauty of this building, and do something very, very nice.
It's good. And then you decided not to rebrand in terms of linking the hotel to an international brand. What was the thinking behind that?
Listen, the strategy was clear from the beginning that we were not necessarily there for the next 30 years. Okay, we had a clear strategy with our investors that we wanted to extract some of the value, and a part of the remaining value should have been shared with future owners. Okay, and as a result, we thought that it was best, also thanks to internal capabilities, basically to operate the hotel ourselves, so that we could give the flexibility to future owners to decide, which type of brand, uh, potential repositioning, and this flexibility as a value for investors. That at the end of the day, it's very, very interesting and valuable, and this is why we decided not to use, or to rebrand the property with an international renowned brand. Although we know that there is quite a lot of interest, of course,
I can
to
imagine.
manage and brand a hotel in this location
Yeah.
in Barcelona.
So by taking the decision not to sign a long-term management agreement with, well-known international brand or a franchise agreement, you were actually already thinking about, what, in our graph here would be then the last phase, so the exit, right?
Yes. This is very critical in asset management, Luke. It's important to have a clear investment thesis and timeline for whichever target you want to achieve. The targets can be very different in asset management depending on the capital that is behind the investment. And we as asset managers need to make sure that we deliver on investors' expectations. And that it was clear for us since the beginning again that the timeline and the time horizons was not indefinite,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore, we had to study the step by steps to achieve the best results possible for our investors.
Okay. And so within the whole plan you came up with and implemented, what was the most difficult part of that whole plan?
I would say that the most difficult part was to manage at the same times all the complexities of this investment, which was like the definition and implementation of the works, its timing, the ongoing operations at the same time, the repositioning without a big brand that, of course, facilitate, the such marketing rebranding, working at the same time in de-risking the asset that was managed by a local operator and naturally, doesn't abide to the international operators, let's say, policies. So it was very, very critical. Um, Also, for example, we had to relaunch F&B outlets, change of key personnel. So doing all of this at the same time is extremely complex, and you have high risk of things going wrong, because if one of these pieces doesn't fit with the rest, then you really risk to undermine the overall strategy.
Uh, That's a good point. So what do you think, which part of the plan had really the biggest impact? What was the
Uh,
factor which was the most defining?
Yeah, we love to believe that is us, but 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 of course,
Yeah.
that then the reality is that capital deployment is definitely a key element to be able to achieve and to extract the value of the asset. Definitely, being able to have the right personnel around, so the personnel on site, the people in the asset management team. So this alignment that Emmanuel was commenting in his introduction,
Mm.
it's definitely the key to achieve the results in an orderly and quick manner, I would say. So, it is many things at the same time, but definitely people and capital are definitely the two things that can make the magic happen.
Yeah, people and
I'll
capital.
add,
Anything?
I'll add another point,
Yes, Emmanuel?
if I may. Just another point on that. I think what made this project particularly successful is the cadence we went through. When you think that we bought in late 21 and we're
Mm.
selling in early 26, that's barely 5 years. And one of the key success of this particular project is that we had all the time the exit in mind. We were able to go fast and to target exactly what we wanted to target from day one. Hence, we are where we are because we started immediately with that mind spirit, that mind frame into we want to go fast. This is what we want to do, and we're just going to do it. Sometimes you lose track a little bit if you are not that focused. Time goes very, very fast. You lose the end objectives and you waste time. On this particular project, we were very successful at keeping the cadence and all the time having the exit in mind.
Is the 5 years, is that like a typical hold period for Schroders Capital, or does it depend on?
No, we tend to. I mean, it depends. We work with lots of different owners and investors. We do work with private equity. Private equity is even faster than that. We've done sometimes hotels that we kept for less than 3 years. We are
Sorry,
a big.
Emmanuel, sometimes less than 3 months, possibly.
Yes, yes. We had a case indeed where we kept a hotel for less than 3 months. But I would say that generally speaking, our time horizon is about 5 to 7 years, sometimes much, much longer when we work with big institutions. So 5 years is on the faster side. And what's striking is what we highlighted at the very beginning is the successful story within 5 years. It's just not an okay story. It's a fantastic story
Yeah,
within 5 years. And that's actually the challenge.
great. Is there anything you say now, oh, maybe this or that we could have done differently, or, looking back at the whole repositioning strategy you had?
Um, Listen, probably I would have improved the initial technical due diligence. Probably spending a little bit more of time at investigating, the asset. Probably, we could have spent a little bit more of time at the beginning in the consolidation of the documentation, But these things had been driven by the speed, of the acquisition that again was very high because of the transaction dynamics that we had at that time. But beside that, I believe that the story and the asset management initiatives were the right one and at the right time, as Emmanuel commented.
Okay, and so how would you then, measure the success of such a strategy? I mean, Emmanuel mentioned, the RGI in the beginning, so the market share, which is a clear indication that with your hotel, you're gaining market share from the competitors. Are there any other indicators you look at?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, please go ahead, Emmanuel.
You're going to some details, but for me, and without disclosing any numbers, the difference between how much we bought for and how much we're going to sell for is definitely the biggest success that we have, without going into details.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I understand, the hotel is currently on the market. So you're preparing the exit. You're already advanced, and so this is going to be very interesting, of course, for your whole team to see. Okay, what is now? How are we going to be able to reap the results of this whole strategy of these 5 years of working on this project? So it's good.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Clearly, that is the ultimate, measure of success. This is what our investors and co-investors are judging us on. But let's say that, in order to achieve to that ultimate goal, it's important to set the different, let's say, KPIs that helps you during, the implementation of the asset management initiative that lead eventually to the increasing value of the asset. So, the most important it's the net operating income of the hotel, how you make it grow. Okay. And then you ask about how you make it grow. Then it's basically an increase in revenues driven by the change of the segmentation mix that you have, the increase in prices, increase in volume, the repositioning of the F&B outlet. For example, one of the outlet is now Michelin Guide recommended, which is quite interesting for a restaurant in a hotel, and this improved the overall experience of the clients staying in the bedrooms, which eventually leads to higher average rates. Another key point for me is how you are able to, let's say, de-risk the asset so that the new buyer has a clear framework, a clear idea of what it remains to do to extract, the value that is still in the property. And that it's a key measure of success. So when you move from a technical or legal due diligence that is, I don't know, many pages long, and then at the end of the process it's focused on just few items, that is a key measure of success, because you have prepared indeed the asset for the next buyer, so that he has a easier life.
Got it. Yeah. So no, I can really feel, what you guys are saying, how focused you are on, this, preparing the asset for the next buyer, make sure, he has still, some upside, but in the meantime, that the sale will go, in easily as well. So that's good.
Yeah, that's the key.
Yeah. So no, congratulations. I mean, fantastic. Very nice case study. Very good job. Maybe in general, so a few more questions before we close. So,
Sure.
What do you think? What do you think? What makes a good asset manager great? So what will be the difference between a good asset manager and a great one?
Well, the difference is smaller than people think, but it's actually also bigger than most people think. A good asset manager understands the number. A great asset manager understands what's behind the number. A good asset managers can read a P&L, challenge a budget, monitor RevPAR, GOP, cash flow, etc. That's the technical foundation. That's the minimum you need to be able to do. But a great asset manager knows that the numbers are always late. Let me explain. Hotels show problems before the spreadsheet. Weak pricing discipline, a GM spending time on the wrong battles, a CapEx project that's improving the product but not the value. That difference, that's the judgment. A good asset manager will report performance. A great asset management like Dario will convert the performance into decision. What do we change? Who decides by when? What happens if we do nothing, etc. And the best asset manager can speak both the languages of the operator, of the hotel manager, and the capital language of the owner.
I fully agree. Yeah. Dario, you want to add something?
I mean, Emmanuel has a clear view of what is a great asset manager. If I had to add something, I would say that, a great asset manager is also somebody that is able to absorb, chew, digest all these operational issues that we have been commenting with Emmanuel, and translate it into a language that an investor that sometimes has no information, no knowledge on the industry is able to understand. That is also a key characteristic for me for an asset manager. Many of the investors in the industry, they are not really interested in understanding whether the shrimp shall be served in one way or another, or whatever operational issues. But at the end of the day, that net operating income comes from that detail. So the ability or the greatness of the asset manager is to really take all these operational, financial, legal compliance issues and to be able to explain in very clear terms to somebody that has nothing to do with this detail, and able to convince them and get them on board and make them understand that this industry is probably one of the best in the world.
Very well said. Very good, Dario. Thank you. So, in my role, I'm also in charge of our, training plan for our junior colleagues. And, we have around, 10 people in our team who are really interested in learning more about hotel asset management. And that's one of the reasons why I do this podcast, because I think it's great content for them. So what would are there any recommendations or is there any advice you can give to young people who say, I would love to become a hotel asset manager? What would you tell them?
I would say, start understanding hotel work. So you don't go full asset management. You go from tool to hotel to learn to understand the nitty-gritty of operations, management, marketing.
We can hear you, Emmanuel.
Emmanuel, I think we have a little, we'll cut that out, but we'll have a little issue with hearing.
There is echo.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still a bit.
Better.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Sorry.
It's a pity because it sounds like a great answer, but
Is it? I'm trying to fix it, but I don't know what. Can you hear?
No, it's all of the sudden, there is echo. You are cutting off.
Maybe it's the internet connection. Dario, so let's start with you, and then you will go back to Emmanuel. By then, maybe there's been changed. So
Yeah, I mean, I would say that that would be, first of all, a great decision, for somebody who is willing to become an asset manager. Um, and the nice part is that there is no preset path to become one. I would say that they need to understand how to be street smart, and then have a very multidisciplinary approach. So learning the operations, learning the finance, learning the investment side, the brokerage, the broader is your understanding of the industry. Uh, Possibly the more successful you are going to be in the role, because you will understand the different, let's say, angles of different investors, operators, people in operations, banks involved. So that would be my advice. Would be a great idea. Start with wherever you want. Move to other roles. Learn as much as possible, and that would be the way you can become a great asset manager. If I may add, sorry, I think you need also to be very ready to handle uncertainty, being able to change the plans if you understand that something is not going as planned. You must be focused or sometimes obsessed with the value creation. That is the key. Our job is really to create value, and as you said, look, there are several ways of creating value, and you as asset manager, you need to understand a little bit of everything to really be able to drive that value creation that, in different assets can come from different things.
Great. Yeah. So no, I like it. You said, be obsessed with value creation, and as well, try to learn as much as possible. What I always tell, our younger people as well, be and stay curious, ask questions, if it's not clear, don't worry, ask questions. We all started somewhere. So we all learned, started with nothing, so to say. So, that's a very good point. Emmanuel, shall we try your microphone one more time, or see how that goes?
I was going to say, if you hit me, speaker,
It's not working.
Sorry, Emmanuel. So we're at the end anyway. So it's what it is. So thank you very much. So in order to conclude the session, first of all, many thanks to Emmanuel Dissay and Dario Filippone from Schroders Capital. I think this was a great conversation. I really loved it. And if you people out there listening or watching this, if you enjoyed this conversation, please follow, like, and subscribe, and then support the channel for future conversations. There's more coming up. We have, some very interesting industry leaders lined up as well for this Inside Hotel Asset Management podcast. So thank you very much. Thank you for my two guests, and see you soon.